Aliens called for help. Humanity responded in force. The night was quiet on Lunar Station 7. Sat alone in the communication room, watching her screens with tired eyes. She had been working for 14 hours. Most of her team had gone to sleep long ago. Only the soft sound of machines kept her company in the darkness. She was thinking about getting some coffee when something strange happened. Her console started making sounds she had never heard before. At first, she thought it was just noise from space. They received random signals all the time. Usually it was nothing important. But this was different. The signal was broken and weak. It came in small pieces, like someone trying to talk through a very bad connection. Leaned forward and began working. Her fingers moved fast across her keyboard as she tried to clean up the transmission. 10 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, she had something she could understand. A voice, not human. The computer translated the words into English, but the fear in that voice needed no translation. It was the sound of someone who had lost all hope. "Please, anyone who can hear us, we are dying. They have come to our world, everything burns, we beg you for help." The message played again, and again. Each time the voice sounded more desperate than before. Felt her heart beat faster. She quickly checked where the signal came from. The system. 3 star jumps away from Earth. She knew about They were bird-like beings with beautiful colored feathers, a peaceful species that had existed for millions of years. Without waiting another moment, she called her commander. Ho arrived within minutes. He was an older man with gray hair and a face marked by many years of hard experience. Before humanity reached the stars, he had fought in the last great war on Earth. Those days had taught him much about loss and sacrifice. "What do you have?" he asked simply. Played the message for him. Ho stood completely still as he listened. When it finished, he asked her to play it again, then a third time. "When was this sent?" he asked. "About 8 days ago, sir. The distance caused the delay." Ho closed his eyes. 8 days. For 8 days they had been dying while their desperate cry traveled through the cold emptiness of space. Has the Galactic Council responded to this? Check the official records. Her face grew dark as she read. "Yes, sir. They received the signal before we did. The Council held a vote. They decided not to help. They said the swarm is too dangerous to fight. The distance is too great. They called it an unacceptable risk." Ho made an angry sound. Unacceptable risk. What about the billions of dying right now? Is that acceptable to them? The door behind them opened with a soft sound. A tall figure stepped into the room. Ambassador was a diplomat who had lived on Earth for 5 years. He was beautiful in the way all were, with long silver and blue feathers that seemed to glow in any light. But tonight, those feathers hung flat and dull with grief. "Commander Ho," said. His voice was soft and musical even now when his heart was breaking. "You have heard what is happening. We just received the signal. My home is dying." His large dark eyes filled with tears that would not fall. "They came without any warning. They are not like other enemies. They do not want to conquer us or take our resources. They want to consume our entire world. Every tree, every ocean, every living creature. When they finish, there will be nothing left but empty rock." Ho looked at the alien standing before him. In 40 years of contact with other species, humanity had learned many difficult truths. They learned they were not alone in the universe. They learned there were amazing wonders among the stars. But they also learned something sad. The galaxy was very old. The ancient species had seen too much suffering over millions of years. They had grown careful and cold. They protected themselves and nothing more. "The Council refused to send help," Ho said. "I am just a station commander. I cannot change their decision." "I am not asking you to change the Council," moved closer. His voice began to shake. "I am asking humanity. I am asking you personally. Commander, I have lived among your people for years. I have watched you carefully. I have seen something in humans that I have not seen in any other species in the galaxy." "What have you seen?" "You still care about others," placed his thin, feathered hand on Ho's arm. "Other species have grown old and tired. They protect only themselves, but humans are still young. Your hearts still burn with feeling. When you see others suffering, you cannot simply look away and do nothing." Ho remained silent for a long moment. He thought about everything he had seen in his many years of life. "Please," whispered. His voice was barely more than a breath. "We have nowhere else to turn. Every other species has abandoned us. They will destroy my world completely within weeks. Then they will move to the next system and the next after that. Eventually, they will come to Earth too. But even if they never threaten your world, I would still ask for help, because my people are dying right now. Because children are crying for parents who will never come. Because there is still time to save some of them, if someone is brave enough to try." Watched her commander carefully. She had served under Ho for 6 years. She had never seen him look so troubled by a decision. "Ambassador," Ho finally said, "I am only a station commander. I do not have the power to order the fleet to move. That decision belongs to others." His feathers drooped even lower. The hope began to fade from his dark eyes. "But," Ho continued, "I can send a message to Earth. I can forward this distress call with my personal recommendation. I can tell them what you have told me tonight." Looked up. "And what will your recommendation be, Commander?" Ho turned to look at the screen where the message still played silently. He thought about all the things the galaxy had said about humans over the past 40 years. They called humans primitive, aggressive, too emotional, too young to understand how the universe truly worked. Maybe they were right about some of those things. But maybe being young was not a weakness. Maybe having hearts that still burned with feeling was exactly what this old, tired galaxy needed. "My recommendation," Ho said slowly, choosing each word with care, "is that we should go to help them." He turned to, "Send everything to Earth Command immediately. Maximum priority. Include ambassador's statement and my complete report. Mark it as urgent as possible." Nodded and began working without delay. Stared at the human commander. "You would really do this? You would ask your own people to risk death for complete strangers?" Ho met his gaze with steady eyes. "We are all strangers until someone chooses to care about us. 40 years ago, humanity looked up at the stars and found a galaxy that barely noticed we existed. No one helped us. No one guided us. We had to find our own way forward alone." He paused and took a deep breath. Perhaps that was actually a gift. Perhaps because no one helped us, we truly understand what it means to need help. And perhaps that understanding is exactly why we must answer when others call out in their darkest hour. The message was sent. Across the vast empty void of space, it flew toward Earth, toward the small blue planet where billions of humans slept peacefully in their beds, not knowing that far away, an entire civilization was dying. And that very soon, they would be asked to do something the rest of the galaxy believed was impossible. To fight for strangers, to risk everything for hope. The question now was simple but heavy with meaning. Would humanity answer the call? Aliens called for help. Humanity responded in force. The message from Lunar Station 7 reached Earth in seconds. Within 1 hour, it sat on the desk of President. Within 4 hours, the entire United Earth Parliament was called into emergency session. President stood at the center of the Great Hall in Geneva. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm, thoughtful eyes. Before becoming president, she had worked as a doctor for 25 years. She had spent her life healing people. Now she led all of humanity. Around her, 300 representatives from every nation on Earth argued loudly with each other. "This is complete madness," shouted a delegate from the European region. "The never helped us when we needed it. When humanity first entered space, they voted against sharing technology with us. Why should our soldiers die for them now?" The swarm has never been defeated by anyone, added another voice from across the hall. Every species that tried to fight them was destroyed. We would be sending our people to certain death. This is not bravery. This is foolishness. General Dong stood near the president. He was the supreme commander of Earth Defense Forces, a position he had held for 18 years. His face was hard as stone as he listened to the arguments going back and forth. "May I speak?" he asked when there was a pause. The hall became quiet. When the general spoke, everyone listened carefully. "Everything you are saying is true," Dong began. "They did not help us in the past. They are extremely dangerous. We will certainly lose many ships and many lives if we go." He stopped and looked around the room. "But let me tell you what else is true." He walked slowly to the center of the floor where everyone could see him. "For 40 years, humanity has lived in this galaxy as outsiders. The older species tolerate us. They trade with us when it benefits them, but they do not respect us. To them, we are nothing but children. Loud, emotional, primitive children who have not yet learned how the universe really works." He turned in a circle, meeting the eyes of delegates from every nation. "Do you know what the universe has taught the old species? It has taught them to be afraid. It has taught them to protect themselves and forget about everyone else. They have lived for millions of years, and in all that time, they have forgotten how to care about others." Dong's voice grew stronger with each word. "Humanity is young. We have only been traveling among the stars for a short time, but that is our greatest strength, not our weakness. We still remember what it means to fight for something greater than our own survival. We still remember that some things in life are worth dying for." The hall was completely silent now. Every person listened with full attention. "If we let the die without trying to help, we will be safe for a while, but we will also become just like the other species, cold, careful, cowardly." He shook his head firmly. "I did not join the military to become a coward, and I do not believe that is what humanity wants to become." Another figure rose from her seat. Admiral One was the fleet commander, the person who would have to lead any mission they approved. She was younger than Dong, with sharp, intelligent eyes and a thoughtful manner. "General, I respect you very deeply," one said, "but I must think about practical matters. Our entire fleet is only 200 ships. The swarm numbers in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands. Even if we truly wanted to help how could we possibly win against such numbers?" Dr. Bai stepped forward from the advisory section. She was an expert on alien species who had studied them for many years. "Admiral, you are completely right that the numbers are against us," she said. "But they are not impossible to defeat. They operate as a swarm, which means they depend heavily on coordination between all their ships. If we can find a way to disrupt their command signals, they become confused and disorganized. Their greatest strength suddenly becomes their greatest weakness." "You are suggesting we have a real strategy that might work?" one asked with interest. "I am suggesting that victory is actually possible. It will be very difficult. The cost will be high, but it can be done." President had been silent through all of this discussion. Now she raised her hand, and the entire hall turned to look at her. "I have listened carefully to all your arguments," she said. "Those who say we should not go have made valid points. The risk is very real. The cost will be high. We might fail completely and lose thousands of lives for nothing." She walked slowly across the floor, her footsteps the only sound in the silent hall. "But I keep thinking about what Ambassador said in his message. He said that humans still care about others. He said that when we see others suffer, we cannot simply look away and do nothing." Her voice grew softer but somehow more powerful. "Is that true about us? I want to believe it is. I want to believe that we became a spacefaring species not just to explore new worlds, but to help those in need. Not just to survive, but to make the universe a better place." She stopped walking and faced the full assembly with steady eyes. "I have made my decision. We will send the fleet. We will answer the call for help, not because it is safe, not because we will certainly succeed, but because it is the right thing to do." The hall erupted with noise. Some people cheered loudly, others shouted protests, but the decision was made and it would not change. Admiral One nodded slowly. She had expressed doubts about the mission, but she was a soldier at heart. She would follow orders. More than that, she would lead her people with everything she had. "How quickly can we launch?" President asked. "If we work without stopping, 72 hours, one replied. "We will take every ship that can fly, every soldier who is willing to fight." "Then make it happen, Admiral." The next 3 days were the busiest in human military history. Shipyards worked around the clock without rest. Soldiers said emotional goodbyes to their families, not knowing if they would ever return. Supplies were loaded onto ships as fast as possible. Weapons were checked and checked again. News of the mission spread across Earth like fire. Humanity was going to war, not for their own survival, not to protect their own world, but for strangers living far away among distant stars. Some people called the decision foolish and wasteful. Others called it the bravest choice humanity had ever made. But everyone understood that after this moment, nothing would ever be quite the same again. On the morning of the launch, 200 ships gathered in orbit around Earth. They ranged from massive battleships to small, fast attack craft. Together, they formed the largest military fleet humanity had ever assembled in all of history. Admiral One stood on the bridge of her flagship, the mighty vessel called Unity. She looked out through the viewing window at the beautiful blue planet below, her home, the only home she had ever known, the home she might never see again. Her communications officer spoke up. "Admiral, we are receiving messages from all around the world. People everywhere want to wish us luck and safe return." One allowed herself a small smile. "Let me hear them." The bridge filled with voices from Earth, children singing songs of hope, adults offering prayers from every religion, messages of love and courage from every corner of the planet they were leaving behind. Then one more voice joined the others. It was President, speaking to the entire fleet at once. "Fleet of Earth, hear my words. You are about to do something that the rest of the galaxy believes is completely impossible. You are about to fight and perhaps die for people who are not your own. Some will call you foolish for this choice, but I call you heroes." Her voice carried across all 200 ships, reaching every soldier who would fight in the coming battle. The entire universe is watching what we do today. Show them what humanity truly is. Show them that even in the darkest night, there are those brave enough to carry light into the shadows. Go now with our blessing. Fight well, and know that every person on Earth stands with you in spirit. Admiral One took a deep breath and straightened her shoulders. "All ships, this is Admiral One speaking. Prepare to enter hyperspace on my command." The fleet began to glow brightly as their powerful engines came to life. One by one, the ships entered hyperspace and disappeared from Earth's orbit, leaving nothing behind but empty space. Below them, millions of people around the world watched the sky with hope and fear in their hearts. Ahead of them, a dying world waited desperately for help that might come too late. And across the vast galaxy, other species watched with complete amazement. The young species from that small blue planet was actually coming to fight. They were actually going to risk everything for strangers. The ancient ones whispered among themselves in wonder and confusion. Either humans were the bravest species in the entire galaxy, or they were the most foolish. Perhaps some of them thought quietly they were somehow both. Aliens called for help. Humanity responded in force. The journey through hyperspace took 3 long weeks. For the crew of the battleship Defiance, every passing day brought them closer to a war that many believed they could not win. Captain Jin walked through her ship each morning, checking on her people and their spirits. She was a tall woman with a serious face but kind eyes that noticed everything. She had commanded the Defiance for 7 years. In all that time, she had never faced anything as frightening as what waited ahead. "Captain," Lieutenant Boram called from the tactical station one evening, "I have discovered something important. You need to see this." Jin walked over immediately. Boram was young but incredibly brilliant. She had a special gift for finding patterns that other people completely missed. "I have been studying everything we know about the," Boram explained eagerly. "I looked at every battle they ever fought, every species they ever destroyed, every piece of information in our databases." "And what did you find?" Boram pointed at the data on her screen. "They do not think as individuals, not even a little bit. They operate as one single mind. Thousands of ships, but only one intelligence controlling all of them together." "That is exactly what makes them so powerful," Jin said. "They have perfect coordination in battle." "Yes, that is true, but it is also their greatest weakness." Boram's eyes were bright with excitement at her discovery. "The swarm mind needs constant communication to function. The ships send signals between each other thousands of times every single second. If we could somehow disrupt those signals, even for just a short time, the entire swarm would fall into complete chaos." Jin studied the data carefully. "How would we disrupt the signals?" "I am still working on the exact method, but I believe there must be a central command ship that coordinates everything. If we could destroy that ship, the swarm would lose its mind." Jin placed a hand on the young officer's shoulder. "Keep working on this, Boram. You might have just found the key to saving us all." Below decks, in the Marine quarters, Sergeant trained his squad without rest. They would be the first soldiers on the ground if the mission required landing troops on the planet's surface. Was a quiet man with a face that told of many past battles. He had grown up poor in a small farming village where people had very little but shared everything they had. The military had given him purpose and direction. His squad had become his true family. "Listen to me carefully," he told his soldiers during training. "We are going to fight enemies unlike anything we have ever seen before. They are not like us at all. They do not feel fear. They cannot be reasoned with. They do not take prisoners or make deals. They only exist to consume everything in their path." A young Marine raised her hand nervously. "Sergeant, do you honestly think we can win this fight?" Was silent for a long moment before answering. "I think that is the wrong question to ask. The right question is this: are we willing to try our very best even if we might fail? Because sometimes in life, the trying is what matters most. Win or lose, we will know we did not stand by and do nothing while innocent people died." The days passed slowly. The crew trained hard, prepared their equipment, and tried not to think too much about what was waiting for them at the end of their journey. Then finally they arrived. The fleet came out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. What they saw before them made even the bravest soldiers fall completely silent. The swarm filled the space around them like a massive dark cloud. Thousands upon thousands of strange organic ships, each one shaped like a twisted insect from a nightmare. They pulsed with an eerie light and moved in perfect formation as one creature. And below this terrible swarm, the planet burned. Captain Jin stared at the main display screen. Large parts of the world were already blackened and dead. They had consumed entire oceans, vast forests, beautiful cities that had stood for millions of years. What remained was and broken beyond recognition. "How many are still alive down there?" she asked in a quiet voice. "Sensors show approximately 40 million survivors," her science officer reported grimly. "The original population was over 3 billion. 3 billion lives, simply gone in a matter of weeks." Admiral One's voice came over the fleet communication channel. "All ships, this is the Admiral speaking. I know what you are seeing on your screens. I know it looks completely hopeless, but those 40 million souls down there are counting on us. We did not travel all this way across the stars just to turn back now." She paused to let her words sink in. All ships move into battle formation. We attack in exactly 10 minutes. May courage guide us all. The human fleet spread out across space, forming defensive lines. 200 ships preparing to face thousands. The numbers said it was impossible. But then something unexpected happened. A single ship, badly damaged and barely able to fly, slowly approached the human fleet. A weak voice came over the radio, speaking in the common galactic language. Unknown vessels, please identify yourselves immediately. Have you come to help us, or have you come to watch us die like everyone else? Jin responded personally. This is Captain Jin of the Earth vessel Defiance. We are humans. We heard your call for help and we came. There was a long moment of complete silence from the ship. Humans, the young species that just came to space. You actually came here to fight, though. We came to help you, Jin said simply. That is the only reason we are here. Another long pause followed. When they spoke again, the voice was thick with emotion that could not be hidden. We sent our distress call to every species in the galaxy. The Council refused to help. The ancient empires all turned away and did nothing. Every race we asked said no. The voice broke with feeling. But the humans came. Why? Why would you risk everything for complete strangers you have never even met? Jin thought carefully about how to answer such a question. In the end, she simply said what felt true in her heart. Because no one should have to face the darkness alone. That is what we believe. The battle began moments later. The human fleet charged directly at the swarm. Missiles flew through space like angry fireflies. Energy weapons blazed with blinding light. The darkness of space lit up with the fire of desperate combat. They responded with horrible efficiency. Their living bioships spat burning acid across vast distances and launched organic projectiles that exploded on contact. Human shields flickered under the assault. Ships exploded and died. But the humans did not stop. They did not retreat. They kept fighting. Captain Jin commanded the Defiance through the chaos of battle. Target their larger ships first. Break up their formations. Lieutenant Boram worked frantically at her station, analyzing the swarm even as battle raged around them. Captain, I have located their main coordination signal. It is coming from that massive ship near the center of the swarm. Show me. Boram pointed at a huge vessel near the heart of the enemy formation. It was larger than any other ship in the swarm, covered in strange pools and growths that seemed almost alive. That is their command ship, their brain. Destroy it and the entire swarm will lose coordination for several crucial minutes. Jin made her decision in an instant. Helm, take us straight in toward that ship. All weapons prepare to focus fire on that single target. We are going to cut off the head of this monster. The Defiance dove through enemy fire with incredible speed. Smaller ships exploded around them as the crew fought desperately to survive. Their shields dropped to dangerously low levels. Warning alarms screamed throughout the ship. But they kept going forward. They did not stop. Fire everything we have, Jin commanded. The Defiance unleashed every weapon it carried. Missiles, energy cannons, everything they had flew toward the command ship. The massive vessel's defenses tried to stop the barrage but could not hold. The command ship exploded in a tremendous blast of organic matter that spread across space. For one beautiful moment, the swarm went completely mad. Ships crashed into each other in confusion. Attacks stopped mid-flight. The perfect coordination that made them so deadly simply shattered into chaos. All ships attack now while they are confused, Admiral One commanded immediately. The human fleet pressed forward with renewed energy, destroying hundreds of confused vessels in those precious moments of chaos. They pushed through the swarm's lines and established a defensive position between the enemy and the planet's surface below. On the burning world, Surviving looked up at the sky with wonder. They saw human ships fighting and dying to protect them. Many fell to their knees and wept with emotions they could not express. Elder, the ancient leader of the people, watched from his shelter deep underground. He was very old, his once bright feathers now gray with countless years. He had seen many things in his extremely long life, but he had never seen anything quite like this. "Who are these humans?" he whispered to himself in amazement. "Why do they burn so brightly for others?" Above in space, the battle continued without pause. The swarm slowly regrouped and recovered from the chaos. They were still far more numerous than the human defenders. The numbers still favored them heavily. But now the knew something they had not expected at all. The humans would fight with everything they had. The humans would die rather than abandon those they came to protect. The humans would never give up, no matter the cost. And that made them very, very dangerous indeed. Aliens called for help. Humanity responded in force. 8 days. The battle for the had raged for 8 endless, brutal days without pause. Admiral One stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Unity, surrounded by destruction. Her uniform was torn and stained with dirt and dried blood from wounds she had not had time to treat. Her face was covered in ash. She had not slept for more than brief moments in nearly 4 days. Around her, the bridge crew worked with desperate focus despite their exhaustion. Warning lights flashed everywhere, painting their tired faces in red and orange. The ship groaned and shuddered with damage from countless hits. Strange sounds came from deep within the hull. "Admiral," her first officer reported with a grim voice, "shields have dropped to only 9%. We lost Engine 3 completely an hour ago. They are pushing another massive wave towards Sector 7 right now." One studied the tactical display with burning eyes. Red dots were everywhere on the screen. So many enemies, far too many to count. In 8 days of constant battle, the human fleet had lost 70 ships. Nearly 8,000 soldiers had died far from home, and still they kept coming in endless waves. But the humans had saved millions of lives. Evacuation ships had carried survivors to safety on the far side of the planet where the fighting was less intense. Every life saved had been paid for with human blood and sacrifice. A violent explosion rocked the Unity. One grabbed her console to keep from falling. "Hull breach on Deck 4, someone shouted across the bridge. "Seal it off immediately," one ordered, her voice still calm despite everything. "Keep all weapons firing." Another explosion hit them. This one was much worse than the first. The lights flickered wildly, then died completely. Emergency power brought back dim red lighting after several terrifying seconds of darkness. "Admiral, we have lost main power to the engines. The ship cannot continue fighting." One closed her eyes for just one moment. The Unity had been her home for 10 years. She knew every corridor, every system, every corner of this ship, but she also knew her duty. "All hands, this is the Admiral speaking. Abandon ship immediately. Transfer to any support vessels that can take you. I am transferring fleet command to Captain Jin of the Defiance." Her crew hesitated, looking at her with grief in their eyes. "That was an order. Leave now, go." As her people evacuated in escape pods, one sent one final message to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral One. The Unity falls today, but our mission continues. Captain Jin now has command. Fight on, everyone. Make our sacrifice worth something." She was the last person to leave her dying ship, watching it break apart into pieces as her escape pod carried her away to safety. On the surface of the planet below, the fighting was just as fierce and terrible. Sergeant led his exhausted squad through the ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. The buildings around them had been shaped like frozen music, like water caught in mid-flow, like nothing humans had ever built. Now they were nothing but broken rubble and ash. "Keep moving," ordered his soldiers. "The shelter is less than 2 kilometers ahead. We have to reach it before the ground forces do." They had begun sending creatures down to the surface. ground troops that were even more horrible than their ships. They looked like insects crossed with nightmares, all sharp edges and clicking sounds. They did not carry weapons because they did not need them. Their claws and teeth could cut through armor like paper. Squad ran through streets filled with debris from destroyed buildings. Behind them, they could hear the terrible clicking sounds of hunters getting closer. Contact from behind, a Marine shouted with fear in her voice. The squad turned and fired their weapons. 3 fell, their strange bodies crashing to the ground, but more kept coming from the shadows, always more. Move faster, do not stop for anything. They reached the shelter entrance just as they caught up to them. It was a massive underground bunker that they had built long ago for emergencies exactly like this one. Squad fought desperately at the door, holding back the enemy while the heavy entrance sealed shut behind them. Inside the shelter, they found thousands of civilians, mostly children and elderly and wounded who could not fight. They huddled together in fear, their beautiful feathers dull with stress and exhaustion. An older female approached. She had pale blue feathers and eyes that had seen far too much suffering in recent days. "Human soldier," she said, "why are you here with us? Your people are dying in space above our heads. Your ships burn like falling stars. Why do you choose to stay and protect us when you could escape and save yourselves?" Considered the question carefully. He thought about his home back on Earth, the small village where he had grown up with nothing, the people there who had always shared whatever little they had with neighbors in need. "Because this is what we do," he said finally. "When people need help, we try to help them, even when it is hard, even when it seems impossible, especially then." They stared at him in wonder. "But you do not even know who we are. We are complete strangers to you." "I know you are afraid. I know you are hurting. I know you need someone to stand with you. That is enough for me." In the corner of the crowded shelter, a young child had been watching this conversation with wide eyes. His name was, and he was barely past his first year of life. He had lost both his parents during the first terrible days of the attack. He had been scared and completely alone until the humans came. Slowly, with hesitant steps, walked up to Sergeant. "Are you afraid too?" the child asked in a small voice. Knelt down so he could look directly into the child's eyes. "Yes, little one, I am afraid. Being brave does not mean you feel no fear. It means you do what is right even when you are very afraid. Will you stay here and protect us?" Felt something tighten in his chest. He put a gentle hand on the child's small head, feeling the soft feathers beneath his fingers. "I will protect you with everything I have, I promise." Across the shelter, Medic had set up a small medical station and was working without any rest. She treated everyone who needed help, human and alike, without any hesitation or preference. Her hands were stained with blood of 2 different colors now, red blood from wounded humans, silver blood from injured, but she did not care about the difference at all. A life was a life. Pain was pain. That was all that mattered. A soldier was brought to her station, badly wounded from the fighting. His wing was badly torn, and he was losing blood quickly. "Hold completely still," said gently as she prepared to work. "I am going to help you now." The wounded looked at her with confusion and something like wonder. "You are human. Why would you help me? Why would you save my life?" "Because you are hurt and I can help. That is the only reason I need. Now please hold still." She worked through the entire night without stopping. When the sun rose the next morning, she was still working, saving one life after another. Above the planet, in the blackness of space, the battle reached its most desperate moment. Captain Jin, now commanding what remained of the human fleet, faced the largest assault yet. The swarm had gathered every ship it had left for one massive final push. Thousands of bioships flew toward the human defensive lines in a wave that seemed to fill the entire sky. "All ships hold your formation," Jin commanded, her voice steady despite her fear. "This is their final attack, everything they have left. If we can stop them here, we win this war. But she knew the terrible truth that she could not speak aloud. Her ships were almost out of missiles. Half the remaining vessels were barely able to fly. They could not hold against this assault, not alone. Then Lieutenant Bahram spoke, her voice shaking with sudden hope. Captain, long-range sensors are detecting incoming ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, and they are definitely not. Jin's heart seemed to stop beating. Identify those ships immediately. Bahram checked her readings again and again. Then she began to smile, tears running freely down her exhausted face. They are Galactic Council ships, Captain, the Star Fleet, the battle groups, even ships from the eldest fleet are coming. Captain, the entire galaxy is coming to help us. Jin could not believe what she was hearing. Why now? The Council voted against helping. They refused. A new voice came over the communication channel. It was Ambassador, speaking from one of the approaching ships. Captain Jin, when humanity answered our desperate call for help, the entire galaxy watched with amazement. All the ancient species expected you to fail quickly. They expected you to retreat when the fighting became too difficult. They expected you to abandon us when the cost grew too high. His voice filled with deep emotion. But you did not run away. You stayed and fought. You died protecting strangers. You gave your lives for people you had never met. Paused to compose himself. You shamed us, Captain, all of us. The old empires and the ancient species, we had forgotten what true courage looks like. We had forgotten what it really means to care about others. You reminded us, and now we have finally come to stand beside you. The massive council fleet crashed into them from behind with overwhelming force. Fresh ships by the thousands attacked the weakened swarm from every direction at once. The battle finally turned. In the shelter far below, Sergeant heard the wonderful news come through his radio. His legs gave out beneath him, and he sank to his knees on the floor, exhausted beyond any words. Young had stayed close to him through the entire night. Now the child looked at him with hope in his eyes for the first time. Did we win? Is it over? Looked at the small child. He looked at all the survivors around them who had lived through this nightmare. He thought of his fallen friends and the price that had been paid. Yes, little one, he said softly, his voice breaking. We won. It is finally over. Outside the shelter, the sky was beginning to clear. The terrible darkness was fading away at last, and in its place, something new and beautiful was being born. Hope had returned to a dying world. Aliens called for help. Humanity responded in force. The war ended 5 days after the Galactic Council fleet arrived. The combined forces of humanity and the galaxy worked together to completely destroy the swarm. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the swarm that had consumed countless worlds was finally defeated forever. They would never threaten anyone again. But victory had come with a terrible price. Humanity lost 73 ships in the battle. 14,000 soldiers died far from home, fighting for a species they had never met before the war began. It was the greatest sacrifice in all of human spacefaring history. On the survivors gathered to honor those who had saved them. 38 million remained alive from an original population of over 3 billion. Their beautiful world was and changed forever by the destruction. But they were alive. They had a future, all because humans had been willing to die for them. Elder, the ancient leader of the people, stood before a gathering of many thousands. Human soldiers stood side by side with civilians. Admiral One, her arms still wrapped in bandages from her injuries, stood at the front to represent all of humanity. Today we perform a sacred ceremony, announced to the crowd. His voice was old and thin, but it carried strength that came from deep within his spirit. This is a ceremony we have not performed in 15,000 years. Today, we declare another species to be our eternal allies, bound to us not by treaties or trade agreements, but by blood freely given and sacrifice willingly made. He turned his ancient body to face the humans directly. Humanity came to save us when every other species turned away and did nothing. They died for us. They bled for us. They taught us that the young can sometimes be wiser than those who are very old. They showed us that true courage is not about strength or numbers. It is about heart. Bowed deeply, his gray feathers touching the ground in the most profound gesture of respect his people knew. From this day forward until the last star grows cold and dark, thee and humanity are one family. Where humans go, we will follow. Where humans need help, we will come without being asked. This is our sacred promise. This is our eternal bond that nothing can ever break. Admiral One stepped forward slowly. She was still tired and wounded, still grieving deeply for all the soldiers who would never go home. But she stood as tall and proud as she could manage. "We did not come here seeking alliance or reward," she said clearly. "We came only because it was the right thing to do, but we accept your friendship with deep gratitude and respect. May our peoples walk together in peace for all the ages to come." The two leaders embraced while the crowd watched. Around them, and humans cheered together with joy that mixed with grief for those who had been lost. 1 month later, the scene shifted to Earth. The world had changed forever in ways both large and small. When the fleet had departed, humanity was considered a minor species in a galaxy that barely noticed they existed. Now, everywhere humans traveled, other species watched them with new respect and even wonder. President stood in the great plaza of Geneva, surrounded by the largest gathering in human history. Millions of people had come in person. Billions more watched on screens in every country around the world. And for the first time ever, diplomatic ships from more than 100 alien species orbited peacefully above Earth. The Galactic Council had sent their highest representatives to attend this ceremony. Ambassador stood at the very front of the alien delegation, his beautiful feathers bright and shining with joy and gratitude. "Today," President began, her voice carrying across the silent plaza, "we gather to honor our fallen heroes, 14,000 sons and daughters of Earth who will never come home to us. They gave their lives not for territory or resources. They gave everything they had for the simple belief that strangers deserve to be saved when they cry out for help." She paused to let the weight of her words settle into every heart. "Some called us foolish for answering the call. They said the risk was far too great, the distance too far, the chance of victory too small to justify the cost. And by cold, hard logic, perhaps they were right." Her voice grew stronger with each sentence. "But humanity has never been ruled by cold logic alone. We are ruled by our hearts, by our deep belief that every life has value, by our understanding that suffering must be answered with compassion, by our certainty that no one should ever have to face the darkness completely alone." Behind her stood a memorial wall made of pure white stone. 14,000 names were carved into its surface. Each name represented a life. Each life contained a story that had ended far too soon in service to others. These heroes taught the entire galaxy something it had forgotten over millions of years. They taught that the young can sometimes lead the old toward better paths, that courage can spread from heart to heart like fire, that when one species refuses to look away from the suffering of others, it can inspire the whole universe to remember its better nature. Ambassador stepped forward to add his voice to the ceremony. "I have lived among humans for many years," he said to the vast crowd. "I watched them carefully. I studied their ways. I tried to understand what made them different from all other species. I saw a people full of contradictions, sometimes violent, sometimes gentle beyond measure, sometimes simple in their ways, sometimes wise beyond their years." He looked out at the millions of human faces before him. "When my world burned and died, I begged humanity to save us. In my heart, I did not truly believe they would come. How could they? They owed us absolutely nothing. The galaxy had never given them any reason to care about others." His voice broke with emotion he could not hide. But they came anyway. They came and they fought and they died for my people, not for any reward or recognition, not for power or advantage, simply because they heard our cries and could not bear to do nothing. He bowed his head. The galaxy used to call humanity primitive and young. Now we know a deeper truth. Humanity is not primitive at all. Humanity is what all species should aspire to become. They are what we all once were, long, long ago, before we grew old and afraid and forgot how to care. Humanity reminded us of our better selves. The Galactic Council representative stepped forward next. She was an ancient being from a species that had existed for hundreds of millions of years, since before most of the current stars had formed. By unanimous vote of all member species, she announced in a voice that seemed to echo with the weight of ages, the Galactic Council has elevated humanity to full member status. You are no longer visitors or observers. You are now full partners in the governance of this galaxy. The crowd erupted in thunderous cheers that seemed to shake the very ground. Furthermore, she continued when the noise subsided, we have created a new permanent position, a seat reserved for humanity alone. We call it the voice of courage. Whenever the council grows too cautious or forgets its duty to help those in need, humanity will be there to remind us of what is right, just as you reminded us during the war. Captain Jin, now promoted to Commodore for her service, stood at attention and saluted the ancient representative. We accept this great honor with humble hearts, and we promise to use it wisely. As the formal ceremony concluded, a smaller group gathered near the memorial wall for a more personal moment. Sargent stood there quietly with Young at his side. The child had traveled all the way to Earth with the diplomatic delegation. He had refused to be separated from the human soldier who had protected him during the darkest days of the war. "Are you going to stay here on Earth?" asked the child gently. Nodded his small head with certainty. "My people have decided. Some will live on Earth now with your people. We want to learn from you. We want to become more like you." Smiled sadly at the child. "We are not perfect, little one. We make many mistakes. We have much to learn ourselves." "That does not matter," said with wisdom beyond his young years. "What matters is that you try to do what is right. You try to help others. You try to be brave. That is what we want to learn." Nearby, Commodore Jin stood with Lieutenant Bahram. They gazed at the names carved into the white stone wall. So many names. So many friends who would never laugh or argue or share meals with them again. "Was it truly worth it?" Bahram asked in a quiet voice. "All this death and sacrifice for people who were strangers to us?" Jin thought about the question for a long moment. She thought about the friends she had lost, the ships that would never fly again, the families that would never be whole. But she also thought about the millions of who now had a chance to rebuild their lives, about the galaxy that had rediscovered its courage and compassion, about a future where humanity would help lead all species toward better ways of living. "Yes," she said finally with complete certainty, "it was worth every sacrifice we made." In orbit far above Earth, watched the ceremony from Lunar Station 7. She was the communications officer who had first received that desperate distress call so many weeks ago, the one who had started everything by forwarding that message to her commander. "What are you thinking about?" Commander Ho asked, standing beside her. "I am thinking about what we did, what we started with that one decision." She smiled with pride and some sadness. "I am thinking about how proud I am to be human." Ho nodded slowly. "So am I, so am I." Far across the vast galaxy, in schools and homes on hundreds of different worlds, young beings of many species were learning about the war. They learned about a young species from a small blue planet who heard a desperate cry for help and chose to answer it. They learned that humanity had shown the old, tired galaxy something completely new. That courage is not the absence of fear. That sacrifice is not about expecting rewards. That the true measure of any species is not their technology or their age, but the size and warmth of their hearts. And in the end, they all learned the most important lesson of all. When aliens called for help across the cold darkness of space, humanity responded with everything they had. Not because they were forced to, not because they would gain from it, but simply because it was the right thing to do. And that single choice made all the difference in the universe.